But I mean, but the extraordinary thing about it was just one joke, wasn't it, that did it, that changed everything.
It was amazing, and it made me famous overnight.
Welcome to WatchMojoUK, and today we'll be looking at 10 iconic Parkinson moments.
You do tend to get a bit aggressive at times, I've noted. I mean, you've got this very...
Well, your wife told me you like that.
Oh.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
For this list, we're looking at the greatest interviews the late, great Michael Parkinson ever conducted on his eponymous chat show. Let us know in the comments what your favourite memory of Parky is. Rod Hull and Emu. Always notoriously violent, it's little wonder that Parky incurred Emu's wrath during his particularly memorable encounter in 1976.
Why is it so aggressive?
It's not aggressive.
Not much.
Parkinson was interviewing Emu and his creator Rod Hull, and the pair came to blows as soon as the introductions. During the interview, Emu bit Parkinson all over, and it was clear he wished the chairs had been spaced further apart this time. Parkinson was attacked so relentlessly that he fell to the floor. He later admitted to being unhappy with the interview and how it could have made him look unserious. But to viewers, this remains a hilarious and nostalgic clip that we look back on fondly.
It's all right once you get to know it.
Robin Williams. Beloved comedian Robin Williams appeared on Parkinson in 2002 to talk about his career and show off his ad-libbing and comedy skills once again.
Basically, it's home defence, just like you had during World War II.
You mean Dad's Army?
Yes, Dad's Army. Old men with a colostomy bag and a pitchfork.
He started out by riffing about shoe bombers and airport security, a hot topic that year, and then moved on to other topics. In truth, Parky had very little to add to this interview for most of it, which was probably for the best. It takes a skilled interviewer to know when he should stop talking and let his guest really shine, which Williams certainly did.
Up until now, I think it was Billy Connolly who held the record for talking longest without a question prompting it.
At the end, though, it was made truly legendary by Williams opening up about his comedy idols and influences, notably praising Peter Sellers and Dudley Moore.
But you said in the research that your influences were, one or two were English comics.
Oh, yeah, Peter Sellers, amazingly.
Sir Paul McCartney. It's his 1999 appearance we're talking about here, as McCartney met Parkinson and quickly launched into stories about how the Beatles were formed.
This historical meeting almost now in the sense of the history of music with John. Tell me about that meeting.
He talked about the day he met John Lennon, watching the Quarrymen perform and eventually becoming a member, as well as meeting George Harrison in school.
So we were backstage saying John was leaning over me with this beery breath. So I said, who is this here?
It was certainly a special moment to watch McCartney recreate his audition for the Quarrymen on television, showing the musical genius that would eventually create some of the most popular and enduring songs in history.
Well, I got a girl with a wrecking machine. When it comes to rockin', she's a queen.
To think it all came about because Lennon and McCartney happened to have a mutual friend. David and Victoria Beckham. Posh and Bex had only been married for a few years when they appeared on the show in 2001, but already they were the most famous celebrity couple in the country.
And I think that people do paint a picture of you, and I think it's people's preconceptions.
But like what?
I think they think I'm a miserable cow in high heels and I just go down Bond Street all the time.
This is what Parkinson wanted to talk to them about, asking Victoria about her public image.
And what comes to is your determination at all costs to actually succeed. I mean, is that a sort of a message that you hope comes across to kids?
Parky also asked them about their growing family and whether they felt they had a responsibility to be good role models, particularly to young fans of football and the Spice Girls. Of course, we all remember this interview for something else. Victoria accidentally letting slip that her private nickname for David is Golden Balls.
You know, I didn't even have to meet her. I see her on the telly and I just wanted to meet her. You know, I just fancied her.
Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy.
There is no relationship between Miss Piggy and myself.
Well,
there is none.
Not only did Parky interview Emu, he talked to many more puppets over the years. though at least these two talked back and didn't attack him.
Anything you may have heard about us in hotel rooms or any of that stuff doesn't exist.
Kermit went on the show to set the record straight about his relationship with Miss Piggy and his alleged affair. The revelation that Kermit and Miss Piggy weren't an item led to Parky confessing that Miss Piggy was truly the woman of his dreams.
And madly, would you welcome Miss Piggy?
It's rare to get a love confession on television, and especially one between two celebrities of this caliber.
Hello, Michael.
Oh, hello.
How are you?
Oh, I'm well.
There was still some clear tension between Kermit and Miss Piggy, however, which certainly made things awkward.
Could I just ask you one deeply personal question?
Of course.
Is that a toupee?
Billy Connolly. Many times did wildly popular Scottish comedian Billy Connolly appear on Parkinson, and he was so popular that he was one of the guests brought onto Parky's last ever episode in 2007.
Don't go! Please don't go, it's the only television I get. Nobody else wants me.
Connolly remarkably appeared on the show before he shot to stardom, and continued to get booked even as he gained a reputation for very bad language. In their last interview, they talked about growing old and its pros and cons as Parkinson got ready to retire.
But the biggest terror I have of growing old is smelling of pee.
Are you on the stage?
There was never any doubt that Connolly would rise to the occasion, and he was just as funny in his last appearance as he was when he told that notorious wife joke back in 1975.
He says, where'd you leave a bum sticking it for? He says, I need somewhere to park my bike.
Orson Welles.
Do you think it's still an industry, Michael? Really an industry? It's not an industry like it used to be, that's for sure.
A man who probably needs no introduction, visionary director, screenwriter, and actor Orson Welles appeared on Parkinson in 1974.
Movies are terribly easy to make. It's much harder to put on a play than a movie. Oh, yes.
He talked about many things, among them Hollywood, and the position of Hollywood in the 70s versus the old studio system that ruled the industry when Welles was making his name.
When you look back, I mean, are you nostalgic about those days, or are they were they just comic relief? I loved them. Did you? You know, I thought it was great, really.
As well as being famous as a filmmaker, though, Welles' true love was perhaps the stage. And he talked to Parkinson at length about the difficulties of putting on a play versus a film. He viewed himself as a symbol of the inevitable end of the system, of the abandonment of the studios for the author-director, which he certainly was.
There was the one beatnik. You know, there was this guy with a beard who was going to do it all by himself. You know, I represented the terrible future of what was going to happen to that town.
John Lennon and Yoko Ono. McCartney wasn't the only former Beatle that Parkinson ever talked to, as he also interviewed John and Yoko barely 2 years after the Beatles were done for good, in 1971.
I think you've got to accept, John and Yoko, that, particularly you, John, that it's alienated you from the people who originally loved you in this country.
Not much actually survives from this interview, but Lennon ended up furious.
The alienation started was when I met Yoko, and people do not seem to like people getting a divorce, you know.
He took aim at the British press for their relentless attacks on his wife, as they called her ugly, were outraged that he'd gotten divorced, and blamed Yoko for the demise of the Beatles.
You see, we're not superhuman, and we really get hurt by abuse. We don't mind criticism of our work as art. But, I mean, the British press actually called Yoko ugly in the papers.
Even today, lots of people blame her for splitting up the band, though John and Yoko remained happily married and successful creative partners for the rest of Lennon's life. David Bowie.
But was it music that engaged you, or was it the sort of showmanship of it all?
It was really the music and the showmanship of it all.
From one legendary musician to another, Bowie arrived to talk about his life and work in 2002. He began by talking about how he, like many other successful artists, was inspired by the one and only Little Richard in his youth.
But you mentioned, though, when you saw Little Richard, you mentioned an interesting word, rebellion.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the purpose of your rebellion?
He also reminisced about seeing the Rolling Stones before they were famous and breaks out his Mick Jagger impression, much to the joy of the audience.
Some guy yells out, "Get your hair cut!" And Mick says, and I'll never forget these words, "What, and look like you?"
Bowie talked about his next record, his back catalogue, recited poetry, and even performed 2 songs. Even better, Hollywood A-lister Tom Hanks was also on that episode, making it an even more legendary television moment.
But what about that sort of androgynous appeal that you developed? I mean, where did that come from? That sort of feminine side of you?
Oh, that's just me being camp, really.
Muhammad Ali.
I was always curious, and I always wondered why I had to die to go to heaven, why I couldn't have pretty cars and good money and nice homes now.
It's no surprise that Parkinson himself said that his interviews with Muhammad Ali, one of the greatest athletes to ever live, were personal favourites, and Ali, one of his most popular guests.
So anyway, I was always curious. I always wondered why. You know, Tarzan is the king of the jungle in Africa. He was white.
One memorable 1981 interview opened with Parkinson asking Ali about his health following a recent fight, and it wasn't long until the humour emerged and the audience started laughing a lot.
Well, I mean, I saw you fight Joe Frazier.
I didn't get hurt.
You didn't?
No.
You did a very good actor.
No. Are you calling me a liar?
No.
Parky later talked about his time with Ali at length, saying that while he didn't like him at first, he grew to like and greatly respect him for his intelligence, charm, and talent.
Are you serious about wanting to fight Holmes again?
I shall return.
You shall return.
You heard me, didn't you?
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojoUK and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.